Before we get started, if you have a hard time finding us, we're in lots of places. We try and put all the announcements in all the places. So if you're wondering when something is, you can always check ucrp.org. It's always there on a scroller. If you haven't been able to go to the candidates' websites, they're linked there. So if you want one place to find them all, go ahead there, and when you click on their picture, it goes to their website. Okay, so let's invite our candidates up. Okay, so for those who this is your first event, John Anderson, Kristen Shevrier, and Kelly Smith are our candidates. And we have a 1-minute opener from each of them, a 2-minute closer, and for those of you who, most of you are in SD21, there's I think 2 precincts that aren't. We have 2 30-second extensions, but we're not going to add those to the opener or closer. We did that in SD21, but we've changed our mind on that. And so we will do their openers, and then we will switch over to our Jeopardy board and ask the questions. So we'll go in order with John and Kristen and then Kelly. Mike is our timekeeper again, so most of the questions in the debate will be 1 minute. On these ones on the 1 minute, do you guys want 10 seconds, when you have 10 seconds left?
Sure.
Okay. All right, John, take it away.
Well, thank you for being here. I'm John Anderson, and I'm honored to be here to discuss our state and our community. Some people would ask, what have I done? I have a verifiable, tangible record of building and advocating for jobs, careers, and successful community contributing companies. I've managed multi-million-dollar budgets with competing issues and have helped 4 companies go from literally zero to hero. I love hard work. I love finding solutions to hard problems. I love building and working with teams. I love my wife Marlo. I love my 5 boys. I love and support our representative government. I love our country, our state, our military, and our police, and that both constitutions, the United States and Utah, promote faith, family, and freedom. I believe in making red conservatism cool again, especially among our younger voters. Again, I'm John Anderson. I hope to get your vote.
Ready? Okay. I'm Kristen Shevrier, and I am currently serving as the House District Chair for House District 54. And I have served in many positions in the Utah County Party and also in the state party, and I've been very active in recruiting people to come and join the party and teaching people and helping them get involved. And I have also been very active up at the legislature. So I am running because I want to continue advocating for you, and I think that's probably good.
Hey, thanks for coming tonight. I have been a delegate for a long time, and I know that even just skipping out on a weeknight is a big sacrifice. And I appreciate that you serve your neighbors by doing this job. I have served on the city council for 5 years, and during that time, I've spent hundreds of hours talking to local residents about our local issues and trying to find solutions. And I think that has made me a dedicated public servant. It has not made me a politician. So I want to manage your expectations tonight that you are not going to get polished politician answers from me. I hope that what you get instead is that I approach problems with careful consideration, with research, and genuine desire to understand the consequences of decisions that we make as legislators at any level. Yes and no are simple answers to complex questions. By the time a problem gets to the state legislature, it is complex, and I will dive into those issues for you.
Okay, thank you, candidates. We have our Jeopardy board back up, which is more for them than you guys, because I realize it's right behind you and pretty bright. So we have, most of these stay within the same category. I had a bunch of you, thank you for those of you who sent in questions. I had quite a few of them. So I have updated the board. Some of them are similar to the SD21 questions that we had because it is the legislature, and so things that are relevant in one House chamber goes to the other one. So the questions are relevant to both. So housing and economics is a category, education elections, getting to know you, miscellaneous and conspiracies, question mark, and random. So, and I do not remember which ones are which. So we will see. Getting to know you. The legislative process and drafting policy language have a learning curve. What skills or experience will aid you in this process? And so we'll start with John, and then after the next one, then we'll start with Kristen, and then the next one will be Kelly. We'll just go in that order.
We get 1 minute?
Yes.
I got home from a mission from Detroit, and I didn't have a clue what to do. I went to a counselor and said, what's the shortest distance between today and a graduation cap? They said, take English literature. And so I did. It's been interesting because I've ended up using that for a lot of things. When I went to Texas Tech University, I helped write 2,000 pages of all of their credentialing for the MBA program. But I do spend almost all day, every day, working on legal things for our company, different statements and so on. I have no concerns whatsoever that we'll be able to learn the legislative issues and work with people at all different levels of education.
Okay. Okay, so for the last 20 years, I have been working with the legislature on a variety of different issues. I started out working on homeschool bills, and from there I have gone to health freedom bills, data privacy bills, food protection bills, just a long list, RCV, pretty much every topic. I have been up there constantly, or consistently, not constantly, for the last 10 years, every session. I'm up there every week. During the off session, I'm there during the interim meetings. I know how to draft bills. I know how to kill bills, and I know how to pass bills. And I think those skills will help me going in. Thank you.
So there's not anywhere near full-time compensation as a city council member, but I spend a great deal of my time looking at code, either evaluating code that's coming from the state that might affect us, because anytime the state passes a law, we've got to relook at what we're doing and make it work together. I've also written a lot of code for our city and cleaned up a lot of code. So I don't feel like this will be a challenge for me. It's kind of been what I've done mostly for the last 5 years.
Okay, this one's to Kristen. Truly just randomly choosing this. Utah Fits All has been considered a scholarship program and a voucher program and has been controversial since the beginning. All things considered now, how do you feel about the program, and would you work to fix it or end it?
I would get this one first. So Utah Fits All, I actually opposed it from the beginning, and I'll tell you why. It is a scholarship program that is also a lottery. I consider it a type of welfare program. It's aimed at a particular demographic, and there are people just above that financial level who don't qualify for it. And I actually have some grandchildren who didn't qualify for it, even though both of their parents work. So I feel like there are better ways for us to solve this issue. We need to have school choice, and I think that we could have, say, a backpack that follows the child. We could have tax credits. There are lots of things that we could discuss, and I do not think Utah Fits All was the best choice. Thank you.
I am a retired school teacher, and I have found that the most success that we have is when we provide a lot of options for parents and a lot of flexibility. And I think we already do that in Utah. I also have concerns about this particular program. One thing that I have concerns with, because I feel like I'm a fiscal conservative, is that we take care of our tax dollars. They are sacred dollars. And when we give them to someone, we need accountability. This program does not currently have that accountability. These funds can be used for absolutely anything. And so I think when we share our tax dollars and when we give tax dollars to someone else, it inherently comes with strings, and we've got to have accountability for any tax dollars that we give to people.
Yeah, I completely disagree with Utah Fits All. I think that it's just not focused enough, and I do think there's other more efficient ways to use those dollars, and I think there's other efficient ways to allow better education for people that are in areas that don't have access to it. So I'm against it.
Okay, thank you. The next question is Kelly, and random for 200. The number has nothing to do with degree of difficulty, so. Are you in favor of environmental social governance, ESG? Why or why not? And then bonus, if anybody wants to answer this using our 3 UCRP questions, who decides what's the data and compared to what? That'd be awesome. You don't have to, though. But.
Okay, this one's kind of an easy one for me. I'm actually good friends with Marlo Oakes, and he asked me to clarify that it was not an endorsement. But we are good friends, and we've had this discussion quite a bit. And our state has already done a lot with this. The legislators have taken us out of investing in things with ESG, and they have taken it out of making determinations for things that we do in Utah. So I think we've already made some headway in that direction. I would want to continue that. I think we also, though, have to watch for any tendencies to do the same sorts of things from our state government when they require things of our cities and some of our special districts. So I think that we, instead of just focusing on the acronym, we watch out for the tendencies that could happen with these sorts of things.
And it goes back to you.
I'll be harsh. I hate it. I think that there's this concept of who decides and what data. It's interesting depending on which side of conservatism or liberalism is proposing it, though the other side hates it. ESG, I think, is just one of these that divides us, and I'm not really for it at all. I think there's other ways of deciding what's good for the governance, what's good for the environment, and so on. And the ESG that I have seen never ever works.
Okay, so who in the audience is familiar with ESG? Has anyone seen it in action? So I know some of the corporations in Utah started using ESG probably 2 or 3 years ago, and they were really heavy into it and wanting to control the actions of their employees, and then we also have all of the outgrowth of this that is in the colleges and universities, and I think we all agree on this issue. So far we've agreed on a lot of issues. It's not a good thing, and we love Marlo Oakes for having blown the whistle and brought attention to it. He did amazing work, so I appreciate Marlo.
All right, it might be too early, but we're going to hit miscellaneous and conspiracies. Okay, truth, somewhere in the middle, or conspiracy. Has Utah's legislature already put into legislation many of the World Economic Forum's goals and the United Nations agenda and programs? So do you think that is true, somewhere in the middle, or a total conspiracy? Who's first? Who went first last time? Okay, John.
Well, as far as the Utah, the Economic Forum, I would say it's not a conspiracy that we are slowly starting to implement some of these things, and I'm against it. I want to make sure that we identify it and see what outside forces of Utah are suggesting we need to do. To me, it falls under kind of this ESG where it's a divisive policy, and so I'm curious to know what some of the specifics are for the economic forum, what they're asking us for. But I just don't like outside entities telling Utah what to do, period.
Okay, I would say that the answer is yes. I think that there are a lot of situations where the little pieces of this get stuck into different bills, and then when you put all the bills together, they all line up, and there you are. And I think one of the things where this stuff is showing up that it's not readily noticed is in One Utah Health. This One Utah Health is presented as being a Utah innovation. It's supposed to be a big Utah program, but One Health is a world program. It's a World Economic Forum program. It's a UN program. And it's sneaking in there. One Health is actually not just about health. It's about water, and it's about food, and it's about, they have made health address every single issue in our lifestyles.
So I would say it kind of doesn't matter whether it's an actual conspiracy or there's truth to it. I find that there's always probably a little piece of truth in something that spins out to a conspiracy, and that these are things that we would need to watch for and be aware of, like Kristen was mentioning, because I think that we have the talent and the ability here in Utah to find our own solutions, and we may see value in things that we see around the country or that we see around the world, but we would want to funnel those through our Utah filter and make those unique solutions that we want for our families here.
My first next. Okay, education and elections. Let's try 500. What is your stance on SB 54? Why and what action would you take?
Okay, I like this. So my stance on SB 54 is it should never have happened, and I spent years coming up to SB 54 trying to stop it from happening, and then I was involved in the lawsuit against the state for letting it happen, and I also helped write the caucus booklet that you see out there because I love the caucus system, and I think SB 54 has damaged the caucus system in a big way. And I think that we need to get rid of SB 54. And I think that's one of the first things that Brady and I should do.
Okay, here's where we're going to part ways a little bit. So when I evaluate legislation, I like to look at what the ripple effects are going to be. What's the worst thing that could happen with a piece of legislation? And my concern, and I love the caucus system. I've been a delegate for a long time. I'm a precinct chair. I'm here now. But if when we passed SB 54 10 years ago, it was kind of the great compromise that saved the caucus system because we had an initiative that was going to destroy the caucus system. So I would be concerned about what's going to be the pushback if we look to repeal SB 54. Then what? Then what could possibly happen to the caucus system? And I would rather focus on building the caucus system, encouraging my neighbors to participate, getting them so much participation that getting signatures becomes unnecessary. I will also quickly tell you, we have some really great legislators who got where they're at because of the signature path.
Well, I would get rid of it too. I think that it favors interest groups and favors people with money, and the fact that my presidential ballot this last time had Lucifer on it is maybe an indication that the signature system is a little bit flawed, so.
Okay, housing and economics for 100. Article 1, Section 2 of the Utah State Constitution says that all free governments are founded on their authority for their equal protection and benefit. For Utah's business owners in the housing market, do the recent high-density housing solutions in the last few years give equal protection and equal benefit?
Okay, sorry, I've got to finish the question. That's a long one. So
Yeah, sorry.
I think we're all... Okay, I've talked to a few of you about housing affordability, and one thing that I have really focused on that local level is finding unique solutions that fit like what we try to accomplish in Cedar Hills. What are our goals in Cedar Hills? What's our density? What's our infrastructure? What are we lacking that we know we're lacking, and what do we need? And so I would say that making these kind of one-size-fits-all, where we've told cities, we're gonna undermine your zoning, we're gonna do an overlay, and those sorts of things. I think while they may help some developers, I don't think they solve the problem that we're at, which is actually housing affordability. And I don't love a one-size-fits-all approach to this problem.
The way I read that question, I mean, is it equal for the businesses in the housing? Again, my concern is if you've got special interest groups that have found their way in as a business to participate in housing, I don't think that is equal. I think there are some companies that I know specifically, in fact, I don't want to put D.R. Horton's name out there, but some companies come in and they buy a large tracts of land and then they do what they want with it. And I don't think that, I think they bypass the whole, city council system and so on. So I don't think that's quite fair. I don't like what you said. I mean, some cities have areas where you could build, some have less. I mean, I don't see Cedar Hills having a whole lot more space for high density housing, but I would say no, that it's not fair when certain special interest builders somehow get in and get these special deals. I'm against that.
I'm also against specific businesses getting special deals from the government. That's where the PIDs and the P3s and those sorts of things come in, and that's picking winners and losers, and it's hurting the small businesses. I think the answer to the question is no, it is not equal protection.
Okay, getting to know you for 200. Have you ever been a delegate and gone to either convention, county or state?
I've gone to conventions. I have never been a delegate. I have voted for delegates, and I've appreciated the process.
I think the real question for me is, have I ever not been a delegate? I got out of BYU and became a delegate, and I've been a delegate ever since. So either state or county, or state and county.
I've also been a county delegate and a state delegate for quite a few years. We moved here from Texas in 1993, and that was my first experience with the caucus system. And I went because my neighbors told me I should, and I had really young children, and I didn't know a lot about it, and I just continued to go and go until I got up the courage to run as a delegate, and I honestly wish I had done it sooner. There have been a lot of fun experiences at conventions, and I am now a precinct chair, and I love sharing my experience with the convention and caucus system and my enthusiasm for it, and I tell everyone, you can do this. And I catch those young people at the door and say, you can do this, you can be a delegate. Just stand up and tell your neighbors that you're ready to go to work for them and you're ready to represent them. And so I've loved being a part of the process.
Okay, education and elections for 300. What is your opinion on direct democracy versus representative government?
Okay, so we live in a representative democracy. So we have a representative government, but I want to tell you that the grassroots of this system that we have is the caucus system, and that is where the democracy comes in, where everybody is invited to come in and select people to represent them. And I am very opposed to the recent Supreme Court decision that made it so that the legislature is bypassed by initiatives. I think that is democracy, that's direct democracy, and we are not allowed now to have our legislature amend anything that comes in through the initiative. So I am opposed to direct democracy. I think that the voice of the people is very important, but I favor representative government.
we should be cautious about anything that goes around our legislators. Those are our representatives that we've sent to do those things for us. And so, and our bills go through a very careful vetting process. They go through fiscal analysis. They go through debate. And so I think we should be really careful about anything that circumvents that process. And I would be cautious too of anything. I think as we tweak this, I would be careful, though, that we maintain some kind of check and balance on our legislature, whether that's referendum or an initiative, that we also, the people are a check on their government, and when we don't feel like they've been responsive, we also need to have a pathway to address that.
It's interesting listening to people talk about democracy. We've heard it this last 4 years. They're going to ruin our democracy. Democracies don't work. We are a representative form of government. It's the most beautiful form of government. It was purposely and I think prayerfully set up so that we at the local level have a voice, and we have somebody that represents us, and they collectively represent us as it goes on up the line. I think it's really the most effective way to represent the little guy, the big guy. Everybody's represented. It's not just majority rules, and that's purposely how this has been set up. So yeah, I love our representative government, and will fight for the rest of my life that we always keep that.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go with miscellaneous and conspiracies. Utah has received the bid for the 2034 Winter Olympics. Utah has to comply with the IOC's rules, regulations, and agreements. Also, any money spent over budget will fall to the taxpayers, and almost every budget has gone over historically. All things considered, is the Olympic bid a positive or a negative for Utah? Or for Utahns?
Who's first?
Who's first?
Kelly?
I think we saw some real positives from the last time that we did the Olympics, and it was an investment in our infrastructure that we still have, and in people coming to practice for the Olympics, and we've seen some real positive things from it. I do think, though, that even though we've won the bid, we don't stop saying this may not work for our community, or this regulation we choose not to follow. So I think in any thing that we get into, any private or public partnership, we continue to push back on what our Utah values are and what we feel like needs to happen. And in the end, I mean, they need us. We're a pretty great place to come for the Olympics. So.
When Marlo and I moved back to Utah from Texas, a week later they announced the Olympics. And we were living in Pleasant Grove, and my job was on South Temple. And they immediately started destroying I-15 to make it accessible, so that made for a fun commute. I also noticed that after that Olympics, Utah was never really on the map, and then everybody started moving here. I also know from marketing committees that I work on for the Salt Lake County, we are going to experience 40% growth over the next 15 years, and the Olympics is going to do it. That presents opportunities, it presents problems. Is it good for us? Well, I think it's inevitable. We do have the most beautiful state. We probably have, we have the only profitable Olympics in Winter Olympics history. I won't say the name of the person that turned it around, but kudos to that.
So I'm very hesitant about anything that takes taxpayer dollars and spends them, because money comes from the backs of our citizens, and we work hard, we spend our lives making the money to give the tax money to the government. And if the Olympics could potentially end up being something that we have to pay for, then it also brings, as you said, tons more people into our state. We already have problems handling the number of people we have in our state. I don't know how many of you have been parked on the freeway lately, but I've spent a lot of time on the freeway because traffic is not moving. And it doesn't seem to matter what kind of day. We have water issues, we have transportation issues. I'm not sure that bringing the Olympics in and a whole bunch more people is a net benefit.
Okay, housing and economics for 500. This one was one that didn't fall in the same, so kinda, just bear with me. Data privacy is a great concern for many. Do you believe that government should create a data privacy bill of rights? And would you be for or against a legal path for action brought against corporations that violate data privacy laws?
Well, I live in a world of HIPAA, and so those laws exist as it is now. I don't know how much more we want to expand that. It kind of concerns me a little bit because even in HIPAA, there's overreach. And then, no offense to lawyers, but they get excited and they make money by taxing businesses on like issues when they get hacked. I mean, data privacy needs to exist, and we need to be careful about it, but I just am not sure that government regulating it is the answer. Like I said, we already have laws there in place, and I would just enforce those.
So I've actually been working on data privacy quite a bit over the last couple of years, and what we've found is that most of the agencies, although they say that they practice data privacy procedures, they don't really know what those are. And they don't know when to delete the data, they don't know how long to store the data, they don't know what to delete, and they don't know where their data goes. ERIC is one example of that, the voter cleanup group. We give them all of our data from our driver's license information, and when we do a grammar request to find out where that goes, they don't know where it goes. Also, all of your stuff from HIPAA, all of your medical stuff goes into the all-payer database, which is where all the insurance codes are, and so all of that information is findable. It's not protected. We have work to do.
I appreciate that our county has taken this really seriously, and this summer, Representative Brammer met with, I know Kristen was there, and Cristy, and to have a deeper dive and discuss these issues and get us more informed as delegates and find ways that we could encourage our legislators to protect us better. The Utah Technology Ethics Board has been working on this issue too, and I think at my core value for this would be that this is personal data. It belongs to us. We need to know where it goes, and we need to be giving permission for where it goes.
Okay, random for 400. There is a big push for electric everything. Do you believe electric saves energy? Could the grid handle this level of usage? And if Utah continues toward electric, what's your solution for the mass issue of battery disposal that will be created? So kind of all-encompassing electric.
Okay, I guess I'm first. There are all kinds of problems with electric. Battery disposal is one of the problems, but also the power grid can't handle it, as we've seen in California, where they do rolling blackouts and they tell you not to, they told you to buy your electric car, and then they told you couldn't use it or couldn't charge it. So I think there are all kinds of problems with going to electric. I think we have a lot of resources here in Utah that we could be using, and I think that we should be exploring those and we should start using them, and there are environmentally friendly ways that we can do that, and I think that we should.
We have a lot of options in Utah, like Kristen mentioned, and my husband has worked in the mining industry for quite a while. My grandfather was a miner, my husband's father was a miner, and so I have deep roots in that we have a lot of options, and we should be doing what we can to explore all of them. And there is no one fix for this. There's no one magic bullet. And for people to say electricity is, every time we find a solution, we create more problems. And so we need to be careful as we come up with more flexible solutions that we're not then creating another environmental impact that might be worse than what we started with.
Electric is interesting. Ever since I was a kid and you flip on a light, you wonder, oh, it just magically happens. Well, something has to produce that energy, and so just to say, oh, electric solves all these problems, no, it doesn't. It has to come from somewhere. I agree with what these guys have said, that there are options. I love the concept of energy independence. I hope we get back there in the next couple years. That's a huge thing. I'd like to see nuclear explored more. I always envision one day when you have a little solar thing that you can put into your house and it runs the house or your car or whatever, and I know I'm dreaming. But there are options, and you're right, Kelly, just because they say electric doesn't mean that solves it, and it creates problems as well. Don't hate me when I go out to my electric car after this.
Okay, education and elections for 100. Common Core and Utah's Common Core. In your opinion, has the consolidation of curriculum into Utah's Common Core been successful, a failure, or somewhere in between?
This is a fun one for me as a previous teacher, as a retired teacher. I actually, when Common Core was first instituted here, I actually went to try and figure out, where is this coming from? Is this a national thing that got sent down in one form that we were all following? And what I found out is that in Utah, we take some of those national standards, because we do want people to be able to move from state to state and have some, in second grade, you should leave with, knowing that 2 + 2 is 4. But then in Utah, what we did that was unique is we had teachers meet in committees, we had school board members, and we actually kind of drilled down to what did we want to pull from that that was going to be specific to Utah. And then I can tell you as a teacher how that works is that we went from what are our standards as a state to what curriculum do we want from our district, and then how am I going to implement that in my classroom. And I had a lot of flexibility for implementation in my classroom.
I kind of have an issue with the phrase Common Core, because nobody's common. People are individuals, and we need to know what the levels are. I think government has a knack for spending more and getting less, especially the United States in healthcare and in education. We spend more than any other country, and we have less outcomes on it. So I'm not sure that I could say that it's working. I like the concept of getting rid of the Department of Education, bringing those dollars back to the states, and I'm curious to see what smart people like Kelly, who's been in education, could come up with for our kids.
So I was involved in this one at the beginning too, fighting against having Common Core come into our schools. And from what I can tell, over the past several years since Common Core has come into our schools, our levels of excellence have dropped. Our children are not performing as well as they used to perform. And I feel like our schools have deteriorated significantly in many ways, not just because of Common Core, but partly because of Common Core and the curriculum and the stuff that came in with Common Core. So I think if I were going to label it one of these, I would probably say it's a failure.
Okay, random for 500. Utah has a history of special interest deals. If the state of Utah is successful in its lawsuit regarding BLM lands, what actions should be taken to guarantee that certain land stays open and accessible to the public? This was sent in by someone.
Is this me?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just. Yeah, you're right.
Oh. Okay. It's interesting to look at how much land in Utah is owned by the federal government. They ignored us for the longest time, and then they love us. So I love anything we can do to get our lands back. And I do think there's kind of two parts to this. I think that anytime there's special interests, I'm a little bit concerned about it too. I want to know, well, who's special interest and who's deciding and who's getting to the front of the line to use those lands. I like the concept of getting federal lands back to Utah for Utah use, and I think the local governments, the local, just the community needs to decide what do we do with that. Like I said, over 15 years, we're going to have a lot of growth, and we're going to need the land for all manner of uses.
Is it you or me? Okay. Thanks, Mike. Okay, so I'm thrilled at the idea of getting our lands back. I think a lot of the lands can help to raise money for education in Utah, but I also agree that this should be a community issue. We should bring the community together, and we should discuss possibilities for what can happen with the land, how it would best benefit each community.
I had a great discussion the other night with Lowell about this, that if this happens, we have some new problems and some new things that we need to solve. Is what do we do with those lands? Right now they're open, and we do have a lot of crush and a lot of pressure to do something about our growth. Do we want those lands, though, to turn into housing, or do we want to somehow preserve them? And then there's a fiscal impact, because if we're not currently having to take care of them, and all of a sudden that we do have to, that's going to have a financial impact on all of us. And so I think it's complex, and it brings a lot of opportunity. But again, we should be making those decisions locally, but we need to be very careful when we make plans for them that we aren't going to uniquely change what Utah looks like when we take open land and then find something that we have to give it a purpose for.
Okay, miscellaneous and conspiracies for 100, but this doesn't fall in that category. What two sitting representatives do you have the best relationship with, and which do you think you would govern similar to?
Okay, well, I don't like the part about have the best relationship. I think I have good relationships with a lot of the legislators. Who would I govern most like? I would say probably Mike Kennedy and Heidi Baldery. I would probably be most like them.
I also think I have a healthy relationship with legislators. I'm not sure if I have a close relationship, and I'm not sure that's important, especially between a city elected official and a state elected official. Brady Brammer and I have had tremendous amounts of discussions. I sat in Brady's living room and helped him run the first time. So he has been open to a lot of text messages, lengthy text messages. I will tell you there are lots of times when we do not agree. But I find that I can reach out to him and at least give him my perspective, and he'll give me his and kind of explain where he's coming from. I also really enjoy visiting with Karen Peterson. She's up in Davis. And I find most of our legislators actually to be very responsive and very kind and very representative of working with all of us. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't know many of them. Brady bought me an egg one time at Neater's. That was nice. One time, I had a nice car parked down at the grocery store, and a kid in a minivan was backing out of the spot next to me, and he turned his wheel, and it scraped the whole side of my most expensive car that I ever had. He was horrified, and he came over and he gave me his insurance, and within 10 minutes, Mike Lee showed up. Now, I know he's not state local, but Mike Lee showed up, and it's the only time I've ever had a car issue, and he just made sure it was taken care of, and his kid came over and he handled it, and I was really, really impressed. I just want to say this: we do have the best run state in the nation, and all of the people that have contributed to that over the years deserve credit.
Okay, housing and economics, 200. Should public infrastructure be owned by private corporations? And what would be gained and what would be lost?
Of course, it's me. I'm the one that I'm still trying to digest the question. So I have seen some value in public and private partnerships. It's interesting because government is actually designed to be very slow and very deliberate. It's not designed to be a fast process. And so sometimes those partnerships can help us to get where we need to go a little bit faster. They've got the supplies, or they've got the connections, or whatever we need to move something along. But I'm always wary of anything that takes, again, tax money and gives it to a special district that has taxing authority, or an area that's able to make decisions for us without an open public meetings. And so I would be okay to make some of those partnerships, but I would like them to then come back and be under an elected, accountable body.
government's in charge of certain things in infrastructure, like freeways and interstates and so on. I was happy to have one of my best friends and worked with him to develop Traverse Mountain from the time it was nothing to what we've got now with the outlets and so on. I was involved with him in the city council for Lehigh, in the water rights, and the whole development of SR 92 and where we sit right this second. And so I didn't tend to think that private businesses can do things more efficiently, but what I appreciated about that process, and Ted Heap, my friend who was the CEO of that project, was how much he interacted with the city, how much he interacted with the state to make sure that he followed regulations and what the city wanted. And I would argue that we have one of the most beautiful shopping areas right now. Now, since he's sold out, it's starting to get a lot of multi-tenant housing, and we won't go down that path. But I do think that private business can assist and do things efficiently, but they need to interact well with the government when it comes to infrastructure.
Okay, so my answer to this would be no. I think that it creates transparency issues where we have money, financial information, and sometimes data, sometimes private personal data that ends up being moved from the government entity over to the private company, and then it becomes inaccessible to the people who are actually the stakeholders. So, and we've seen this happen. It happens with insurance information, it happens with health information, it happens with the University of Utah, where grandma requests have been filed to try to get information. We can't get it because it's part of the private side of a public-private partnership. So I think it's the other issue with it is that the government often absorbs the risk and the cost if the private company doesn't follow through.
Okay, getting to know you for 500. Have you thought about a bill that you would like to run as a legislator, and what would it be?
Totally. I love healthcare. I think there's a lot we can and should be doing in healthcare. I think we need to make healthcare transparent, and I'm not just using that as a punchline. I've got a plan, I've got a policy for exactly how we lower the healthcare costs. We've been doing it with Motive Health. I just started another thing called Start Health. Lee Jacobson, who's sitting right here, has a company called SBM, Surgical Benefit Management. Cash pay as your primary. It saves 70% costs, and everybody needs to be doing that. More details to come.
So I actually have 7 bills that I'm working on right now, and I'm sure that when I'm elected, some of those will be pushed over to me. One of the ones that's my favorite is data privacy, and another one that is very important to me is a blood choice bill, where you can have other companies besides the ones that we already have in Utah come in, and people who have to have surgeries or blood transfusions can choose the blood that they want, where right now they can't. And I have a friend whose daughter has had to go to Florida to get blood transfusions because she wants to make sure that she's getting a certain kind of blood and she's not allowed to use it here. So those are 2 of the bills, but I have 5 more.
So this group probably knows that we had close to 600 bills that were passed just this last legislative session. That's we have a 45-day legislature. That's a lot of bills for somebody to have to go through. Another thing I love about our party is these legislative committees that we've formed to try and advise our legislators on these things and look for things that are sneaky in a bill or that are concerning for us, because it's almost too much to ask them to do. I think in that same vein, I think we run too many bills, and we need to do less bills, and we need to slow them down, and we need more input, and we need more vetting. And so although I feel like I'm uniquely qualified to do some education kind of cleanup bills and maybe something to help with the school choice thing that we've talked about, I don't have a bill that I'm ready to write for that reason. I think we need to slow down.
Okay, housing and economics for 300. Should political subdivisions like cities and counties use taxpayer money to hire lobbyists? And how would you improve relationships between city councils and legislators?
Okay, so no to the first one. No, I don't think political subdivisions should use taxpayer money to hire lobbyists. We're already paying whoever's working at the county. Can't they go lobby for their own issues? It seems like they should. So how would we improve relations between city councils and legislators? I don't know. I haven't served on a city council. She knows the answer. Honestly, I don't know the answer. How we would, I don't know if they have a problem. So, go ahead.
Okay, I think this question is targeted at ULCT, which is our Utah Leagues of Cities and Towns. And when you have responsive legislators, you may not need this as much. But one thing that ULCT does that doesn't have to do with actually necessarily lobbying for us individually is it does lobby for local authority and push back on any state regulations that would take that local authority away from our cities. And I have always felt like if a decision could be made in a family, in a school, at a city level, that's where it should be made. And although we, as cities, we do pay dues to the ULCT and they do lobby for us, the other thing that they do is train us extensively on how to behave as city council members and how to protect our residents and how to have government transparency and a host of other things that make us much more effective for you at the city level.
Well, I'll come down the middle. First of all, I think it depends. What's the issue? Why do we need a lobbyist? Answering the second question, communication solves a lot of things. And to your point, Kelly, I think that it is hard. Sometimes you don't have legislators that will give you the time or whatever, but I don't know what the issue is that they're wanting a lobbyist for. But if there's a city council, you want to solve the issue, communicate, sit down, talk. And express. I forget who I was talking to tonight, but basically, I don't care how far left or how far right somebody is. If you sat down at a table, broke some bread, and said, what's important to you and what's important to you, 80% of the information is common. We're there. And so just communicating effectively could solve a lot of these issues. I'm not sure that you need to spend tax dollars on a lobbyist to communicate for you.
Okay, miscellaneous and conspiracies for 200. What are your thoughts on jury nullification? This is also known as a fully informed jury.
I have not had experience with this. Yeah, I don't think I could speak to this one. I'm not sure that I have enough information to give you a good answer on jury nullification. So that's one I'd have to study up on. I will say that just studying for this debate was exhausting. The amount of information that you need to know to cover state issues is a lot. And just like these legislative committees, I would also depend on the talent that we have in HD54 to tell me what's important about jury nullification and what I need to be looking for in a bill.
Yeah, this is where I would hire an attorney. This is where an attorney would be great, because nullifying a jury versus an informed jury, I mean, obviously we want an informed jury. What my mind hears when I hear this is that there are certain things that get presented in a way to obscure what you're really trying to get at. A lot of our bills are that way, which is why I'm grateful for bill killers. I think we need clarity. I think juries need to be clear on what they're getting. And so nullifying a jury because they weren't clear or it wasn't communicated and informed is probably the issue here. So whatever we can do to simplify a message down to the kernel, everybody needs to know what we're talking about and not use high language that confuses things.
So if I remember correctly, jury nullification is when the jury intercedes on behalf of the defendant because they feel like the sentence was unfair. Oh, wrong. Oh, the law was unfair. Thank you. Thank you, Law. Did you submit this question? Okay, so what did you want us to say about it? What was the...
Just do you agree with it?
Oh, definitely. Yes, I agree with jury nullification. Yes.
Okay, education and elections. Moving forward, what reforms do you believe would be the most effective to improve Utah's elections?
Well, first of all, I think, we don't have as big a problem as they've got in other states. I look at Arizona and wonder what the heck happened. As far as, I think that Utah elections have gone well. I like that I was able to get an early ballot and we put it in. I like that we have a date that it ends on. And so I'm kind of okay with the way that we've got our election system now. I'm not for electronic voting machines as much as I am. I am all for one vote, show up on the day when you can, show your ID. I am fully for voter ID and I never want to see that go away.
Okay, so what changes would I make? I would go back to same-day voting in person with ID. I would get rid of mail-in ballots. We would keep, absentee ballots are always an option, and they should be an option, but the difference is that those are sent directly to a person because they requested it. But with the mail-in ballots, they're just mailed to whoever lived there, and I have in the past had 4 extra ballots at my house. So I think we need to get rid of that. We need to get rid of early voting because it is it's a good way to cheat, and I think we just need to get rid of that. The other thing that I would do is get a Secretary of State and have them elected for a 6-year term, and they can't run for re-election at least for the next term. That gets rid of a lot of the problems with conflict of interest.
No matter where we fall politically, election integrity is crucial for all of us. If you're going to take the time to vet a candidate and you're going to look at an issue, you want to make sure that your ballot is counted, that it's secure, that all that work that you've done is not for nothing. And I appreciate the options that we have. I appreciate that people can vote in person. You can turn it in a ballot box. You can mail it in if that's what you choose to do. I do have a couple of concerns with that. And actually, the last time that we had our special election, Aaron Davidson was there, and he and I are not personal friends, but I took the time to go over and discuss some of the concerns that I had, not just on some of the things that his office was doing, but I wanted to hear some of his concerns on what is he seeing that we can help with on a city level to inform and educate our residents to keep our elections as secure as possible.
Okay, education and elections 400. Taxes. What is it okay to use taxes for and not okay to use taxes for? And what is the proper role of government regarding sports stadiums and taxes?
Well, clearly taxes are sacred funds. I got asked a few weeks ago, what do I think about taxes? I'm honored to pay them. I love that we live in a country where we pay taxes, but I don't want to overpay them, and I don't want them used frivolously. When you specifically talk about sports stadiums, that's interesting because I've been looking at how do we bring an NFL team here, how do we bring a hockey team here. We got one of those done. Won't worry about it. But I definitely don't think taxes should be used to bring a sports stadium. I think that there are other ways of doing it, and I don't like seeing bonds or anything like that put together for it, and so I'm against taxes being used for stadiums.
So I think it's okay to use tax dollars for things that benefit all of us, like roads, fire, police, the basic things that we all need for our protection and safety. I don't think that it's okay to use tax dollars for stadiums. I think that's a misuse of tax dollars, and I know there was a big donor who donated some of it, but as we said before, a lot of times in these situations, the government or the taxpayers end up holding the bag when when too much money is spent and there's no way to cover it. Like right now, we have a stadium, but we don't have a team. And at last I heard, they were having a hard time. It might be 5 years before they find a team. So we need to be more careful with our tax dollars.
On a local level, we really deal with the kind of nitty-gritty that we use tax dollars for. Tax dollars, in my opinion, should be used for things that we can't really do for ourselves. It's difficult for us to individually hire police services, or individually build roads, or even create recreation programs or parks that we all enjoy. And so those things, that's where I think tax dollars are useful, is where we can pool our money to have a benefit for all of us. I think governments get into the business of trying to incentivize businesses to come or incentivize things to happen in our area. I don't think that's something we actually have to do in Utah right now. And so where we look at RDAs or other things where we might give tax incentives, I think there's a place for them. There's a time for them. I don't think it's now or it's Utah.
Okay, we have about 4 minutes left. If you guys don't mind, we could hit these really quick with 30 seconds, unless you want to take an extension and get these all done, and then we don't leave everyone guessing what's behind these ones.
Yeah, because they'd be up all night.
Do we know who's winning? I want to know how many votes.
Yeah.
I love, this is so different than SD21. This has really brought out some personalities. It's been really fun. Although you guys cannot keep track of your order like they were able to. I just want to point that out. Getting to know you for 300. If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be? And you can't include family members or Jesus, because that's too trite. So you can have dinner with anybody. You don't get to take the high road and say Jesus. Okay, good.
You know, I like the Beatles. I would love to meet John Lennon. I would love to sit down. I've got a few questions for him. But before him, I'd put Brigham Young. I'd love to have a cup of coffee with Brigham Young. I'm kidding. But I got a few questions for Brigham Young, and I do respect him a lot. I love the history of this state and leaving the United States to form a bigger United States. I love that the first thing that he did was they held a parade, and they held up the Bill of Rights and the Constitution in the parade in a dust-filled road here in Salt Lake. So, yeah, I've got a few questions for Brigham, and I think he'd be interesting to talk to.
Hey, I would like to have dinner, was it dinner? With my, whatever it is, I'll have it. With my great-great-grandmother, who had a cute little house up in, I'm trying to think, I can see the house, but it's up by, well, I won't tell you where it is. It's in Utah. But she had a cute little yellow house by the rodeo, and she died when she was very young, and I've always been very curious about her and felt a really strong relationship with her. If I could spend some time with anyone, that would be the person.
I am a big mystery reader. I love to read mystery books. And if I could sit down with anybody, I would love to sit down with Agatha Christie. Her mind is amazing. The different things that she was able to come up with, and just how creative she was, and how twisty a little bit too. You know, you just like when you didn't see some of those answers or some of those suspects coming. And so that's something that I just love to do when I need to relax and I'm not reading code and I'm not reading a book about self-improvement, which I love to do. I just love to immerse myself in an Agatha Christie book, and I would love to get a little more into that mind that created that.
Okay. Miscellaneous and conspiracies for 500. Total conspiracy, everything's normal, or somewhere in the middle. COVID-19 was planned, and a kickoff of a new self-perpetuating economic order that sets up parallel government systems that rob the global commons through public-private partnerships.
Could it be somewhere to one side of the middle?
Whatever you want it to be.
Well, we know that COVID-19 was a, boy, I'm losing my words now. It was gain-of-function research. We know that. It was created in a lab. And so was it planned? I don't know for sure the answer to that, whether it was planned. We do know it was created. And it has played in very well to the parallel government system and economic order stuff. So I don't know the answer for sure. Who's next?
I also don't know that answer. I feel deeply for the suffering that we had during COVID-19, and I have trouble talking about it in a way that discounts those experiences, those real experiences that people had. I hope that's not true. And I hope that we have learned some serious lessons. I think in hindsight, we have seen some things that we would do differently and we would not do again. And I think that's valuable. But I would say that's a tough one for me, because we had some real things that happened to people that we don't want to just discount to a government conspiracy.
I'll forego my joke then. We wouldn't have conspiracies if they would just show the information. If they don't show the information, all we can do is conspire and wonder what happened. Lockdowns, lies, get the jab, you won't get sick, get the jab, no one else will get sick. Government shutting down businesses that, some were too big, they got to be open. You're a small hardware store, you need to be shut. There was evil galore going from that created this whole mistrust in our environment, in our communities, in an us versus them. We're no longer a we. I hope we can get back to we. And, it was created, it was planned, not necessarily to release it, but they were studying it. It was gain of function. And somehow it got out, and the timing sure was conspicuous. That's all I'll say.
Okay, random for 300. I think we have 2 left, and 30 seconds. So the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, known as GOEO, is a combination of special interest groups, legislators, and bureaucrats that often recommend legislation. What are your views on the separation of powers?
Okay, I really love the separation of powers. I feel like we have a lot of ways in our government that we can check and balance each other, and each one of those is really valuable. I also, though, believe that when we collaborate with different groups, especially ones we may not agree with or that come from different perspectives, we get to better solutions. And so I wouldn't want to see us stop those collaborations, but then we have to, again, send them back to the proper role of government, to our elected officials who are accountable, who can then take those ideas and vet them and decide what we're going to do with them.
I'm for it. I like when people get together and talk. I think, like you said, Kelly, when these different groups get together and share their ideas and perspectives, good outcomes come. I don't like people being favored in a special interest, so I'm dog-eared over a special interest thing. But I like when all these groups get together and say, here's the problem, here's a solution. And I think that's healthy for us.
So if we're going to get together and discuss things, then the legislation should come through the legislature. It should not be coming from the executive branch. That is what the separation of powers is. So I am opposed to legislation coming from the governor to the legislature.
Okay, random for 100. If elected to the House, how would you strengthen Utah's caucus convention system?
I love the question because I love the caucus system. I think, again, I'm going to say this phrase that sounds trite. I want to make conservatism cool again. Strangely, the NFL, we've seen all these little Trump dances and all that. And I'm going, where have these guys been? The youth showed up in massive ways for this vote. And the way I would strengthen is I would get on college campuses and I would make sure that all those guys understand in simple terms what republicanism, what conservatism stands for, and get them out and appreciate this caucus system.
Okay, so the first thing is get rid of SB 54. The second thing is to get the caucus booklet that I helped write and put it into every classroom so that people are learning about the caucus system, because right now our schools are not teaching it. And I think that is very basic to protecting and building the caucus system.
Delegates are actually the best people to do this, and I would encourage delegates to do what you're asking us to do as your representative. You want us to come back to you and vet decisions and ask for your opinion. please do that when you go back to your neighborhoods. When they don't hear from you after they elect you, they start to think it doesn't matter. So go back to them, tell them the research that you've done, ask them their opinion. The more we do that, the more this will matter.
Okay, and the last one, thank you guys for hanging those extra 5 minutes. Getting to know you for 400. Humans are fallible, and like John Adams said, power cries like the grave, give, give. What in your life is in place to check the human nature problem of ego and special interest advantages that come with legislative power?
I'm first.
Well, I honestly have never been attracted by power. If I were, I would get a job that paid. So my interest is in bringing people in having legislative collaboration committees, which we started, and having the people come in, and that is a check on getting carried away with power if you make sure that you are bringing people in it and getting their input.
Asking for help with this job is, I think, what checks your ego, and recognizing that you are not actually the powerful person. The people that you represent are, and that's where your strength comes from. That's where your support comes from. And so I think just recognizing that you're just the vessel, and if you have that servant mindset and you're really representing people, that's an easy thing to do. I also have 7 grandchildren who keep me very grounded. So.
Yeah, what's the phrase? With great power comes great responsibility. In my personal life, I hold things more sacred when I'm representing other people. When it's a company, when it's whatever, I know that I have people to answer to. It's a little different when it's just me, myself. But knowing that you're representing Alpine, Cedar Hills, Highland, that's great power and great responsibility, and any of us would be honored to do it.
Okay, you guys cleared the board. We haven't done that yet, so thank you. Listen, please, yes, give them a round of applause. These are not easy questions, as you can see, and they do not get them in advance, so that's on the fly. I just wanted to reiterate, James Madison, and this is a plug for our LCCs that are coming up this Saturday, said the advancement in diffusion of knowledge is the only guardian of true liberty. And knowledge is the only thing that will protect us against very real, people always say, oh, this corruption nowadays, and I go, nowadays? Like Machiavelli wrote The Prince a long time ago, because power has always cried like the grave, give, give. And this stuff matters. So our knowledge, especially of House District 54, which I'm a proud member of, to have such hard questions, and with the SD21 race, and to have people elevate their conversation. I hear you guys as you're out there asking questions. They're intelligent questions. They matter. There is such a difference between, and a disconnect between what we think it is when you go to the legislature and then what it really is, and the actual, controversy, conflicts that come their way, and the decisions, the really hard decisions that they have to face. It's not always so black and white, and you guys have really raised your level of knowledge as a House, and so I really applaud you, and also our 3 candidates for all of their prep that they did on this one. I know a lot of you were studying and looking up issues, so thank you very much. We have our LCCs, and Kelly plugged them. If you have not, a lot of you guys signed up. House District 54 had quite a few. This is Saturday. It's down at Moxie. We're going to go over the legislative process. We're going to go over decorum. We're going to go over how the website works. If you haven't signed up yet, you can still do that. There's a red button at ucrp.org. This is going to be 2 hours of a really fast deep dive, but it's going to put us in groups with our legislators so that we can help them and assist them. I think we asked the question to Brady last session, how do you get through 600 bills? And it's just not possible. And he was gracious enough to let us join a team and read some and flag some, and we're going to show you that process. So if that's of interest to you, please don't let the subject be intimidating. We're going to try and give you the tools in order to do that so that we can arm you with knowledge. The other thing is we have a Zoom call after we get back for, oh yes, I didn't do their closers, huh? Yeah, okay, let me finish these, we'll do your closers, and then we'll head out. We have a Zoom call on December 2nd at 7 o'clock. We'll do question, answer, and then we have December 7th. If you have any alternates that you need to get in, please get these in. We're back here at this exact school. So we will go, let's see, Kristen first, and then Kelly, then John, then Kelly. That puts the order correct. So 2 minutes, Mike, you've got that?
Thank you guys all for being here, for all of the time that you've put into this. It's much appreciated. I have spent the last 2 decades working to represent our community up at the legislature. I have been up there drafting bills and trying to further your interests, to further your freedom to choose the things that you want to do, to choose your own health care, to protect your data, all of the things that I've mentioned that I've worked on up there. I've built relationships with legislators, and I know how things work, and I think that I can get things done. I know I can because I've been doing it. So I would just ask you to support me in supporting you and allow me to represent you. I would be honored to do that. Thank you.
So thanks for coming, and I have really appreciated the process to get here tonight, the opportunity to really dig deep on issues that I haven't before now needed to really look at closely, and so it's been a really good process, and I appreciate hearing from the other candidates because I'm also a delegate. So in this instance, I know who I'm voting for, but in general, I love to hear what candidates have to say, and I care deeply about who represents me. I really worked hard on Brady's race and making sure that I was choosing someone that I thought was best representative of my neighborhood. I don't know anyone, though, that I agree with all the time. And I actually don't think that we value that in our personal relationships. I didn't look in my spouse for someone that I agreed with all of the time. I looked for someone who stretched me and who supported me and who maybe made me think differently about something. And so I hope that tonight, as you consider who you're going to vote for, and as you consider who you want to represent you, that you are that you have thought deeply about these tough issues, that you have maybe learned something tonight and thought differently about how you would handle it if you were in our shoes, and that instead of looking for agreement with your opinion, you're actually looking for someone that will listen closely and consider carefully what is best for all of the residents of HD54, and rather than someone who will represent your viewpoint or a prescribed viewpoint or position, you'll look for someone who will be a responsive advocate for you. I have done that in my elected position, and I will continue to do that. And these issues are bigger than 1-minute responses, so I look forward to continuing the conversation with you.
Well, this has been fun. I appreciate Kristen and the water. Kelly, I enjoyed getting to know you. And so thank you for being here. Yeah, I'm just enthralled in this whole process. I know that Utah is at a crossroads. I know that we are looking at lots of growth in the next 15, 20 years. There's going to be a lot of new issues, new bills, new discussions to be had. I am encouraged by the vote that we just had, and like I referenced earlier, I'm encouraged by the youth that are becoming clear-eyed. They're smart. I've got 5 young men that my wife has raised, 6 if she counts me, but we have intelligent discussions around our table, and I know that they care. What I feel strongly about, like these questions, it's sometimes we're sitting there asking ourselves, wait, is this a yes or no? Is this a not, for? I mean, is it double no? It's hard to understand. I think we need to make legislation clear. I think we need to make it clear so that young people get it. I don't know how many times I talked to people that voted, and they said, what did that question mean to you? What did you feel about, what did you vote about that? Because I just don't think that people always know. And I think sometimes purposely legislation is written that way. So I would like to see that. I want to let you know a few things that I believe in. I'm adamantly against government overreach. I'm adamantly against the mask and vaccine mandates. Anything mandated scares me. I am all for and spend my time on fair, balanced budgets and slowing government spending. I believe in making healthcare more transparent, affordable, and I have a plan to do it, which we referenced. Like I said, I believe in making red conservatism cool again. I bring a clear and an active conservative common sense perspective to the table. I believe in doing the right things at the right time. I hope to represent you, and as Kelly suggested, I'm going to stand. She said, delegates should stand. I am ready to go to work for you. I am ready to represent your interests and vow to hear you and make you proud. Thank you for those words.
Thank you very much to our candidates. I apologize for getting out of order. If you are a precinct chair, raise your hand. Okay, you have an assignment to make sure all of your county delegates are coming. We are going for 90% at this next election. We had 87% at SD21. We're going to go for 90%. It's in this auditorium on December 7th. So you have enough time to make sure that they're going to be there, get their alternates in. I'm super excited to see you guys do that. Make sure you have personal contact with them, that they've confirmed that they will be here on December 7th. And I think our candidates can meet you out in the hall, and we've got about 30 minutes still of the school. So you can ask them a couple more questions on your way out if they're willing. And thank you guys for coming tonight. Appreciate you.